Hello, hello, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com. We are 42 days away from the opening of the Pittsburgh Penguins season and their matchup against the Arizona Coyotes on October 13th at PPG Paints Arena. And we are 21 days away from the opening of 2022 training camp for the Pittsburgh Penguins because it is officially September. The longest and slowest month of the hockey calendar is over, Horwat. And what is greeting us here on the first day of September? But some pretty good news for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mike Sullivan has signed a 3-year contract extension with the team. Now, the caveat to that is he still had 2 years left on his current deal. So he is now signed through the 2026-27 regular season. Just a rundown of some of his accomplishments before we get into discussing it. 7 seasons as Penguins head coach, which is tied with Eddie Johnston for the longest tenured in Pittsburgh Penguins history. He does hold franchise records in most career regular season wins at 297, playoff wins at 44, is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion head coach, and multiple top 10 finisher in Jack Adams Award voting for Coach of the Year. That's what Mike Sullivan has done in his 7 years so far. Now he is signed for the next 5 seasons. Hora, what did you think of this news that came down earlier this week?
It's great stuff. All of the bench bosses have been getting promotions, have been getting raises, new contracts. This is a great deal. I know the trendy topic and the trendy opinion is to question this contract and to raise concerns or bring up the failures of playoff victories recently. Who cares? Because let's be honest, he should have been up for Jack Adams the past 2 seasons. The only thing that made me scratch my head is I didn't know you could sign even coach. Like I know you can with players. I didn't know you could sign coaches that far in advance.
You can't sign players that far in advance either. Like you have to wait until their last year of the contract. So I don't know why the rules are that different for coaches, but I guess they are.
Yeah, that's the only thing I found weird about the whole thing. I mean, it's not like coaches count against the salary cap or we even really readily available know how much he's making money-wise. So that's not important. Hope it's a fat check that he wrote in himself that he can just make whatever he wants because he's proven to be the greatest coach in Penguins history. I forget how long Bilesma was here for exactly.
6 seasons, 5 or 6, because he started in 2008, 2009, and he ended in 2013-14.
Okay, because I'm trying to remember how many seasons it took him to get to whatever amount of wins he got, and Mike Sullivan passed it in what seemed like much shorter time. I mean, I don't know the numbers exactly, but Mike Sullivan's proven to be the greatest coach in Penguins history. Why are you not going to extend him? And like I said, I get that I've seen that the trendy topic is to not enjoy this or look at the downsides of signing Sullivan for another 2 years or 3 years past the first 2 he's already on. But again, he's one of the longest tenured head coaches in the league. Why not stick him around a little longer? Because he has integrated himself as part of this core. Mm-hmm. We talked about keeping the core around for a long time. Guess what he's done? He's made himself a part of it as well.
Yeah, I would say that he's the unofficial 4th member of the Penguins core, right along with Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. Now, what you were saying there is a lot of people are saying, wow, 5 more years for a guy that hasn't won a playoff series in 4 seasons. Yeah, I think I agree with the fact that it is an ambitious signing. I mean, 5 more seasons. But also a guy like Josh Yohe, who covers the Penguins for The Athletic, said a very good point when he said, listen, the Fenway Sports Group, if all the wheels fall off, they have the money to just be like, all right, you're fired. We'll pay out the remainder of your contract, but get out of here. Like they have the money to do that. Do I think that's going to happen? No, that's not going to happen under Mike Sullivan's watch and specifically under Sidney Crosby's watch, because still the core of this team, the ones that play on the ice, are very talented hockey players. So we know for a damn fact that the next 2 seasons are going to be good, are going to be playoffs most likely, and have a chance to be more than that. And Mike Sullivan talked about as much in his press conference right after making this agreement with the Pittsburgh Penguins on an extension. So I don't think the wheels are going to fall off. I do think he is one of the best coaches. I said top 5 yesterday. Friend of the show, State of Hockey, corrected me and said, honestly, top 3 coaches in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't argue with that fact. Now, there are people that are saying, hey, he doesn't have the playoff success. And I'm like, do you forget the fact that this guy won 2 Stanley Cups in his first 2 seasons? And people are of course, it's a what have you done for me lately thing, which all sports are. And he hasn't won a round in the last 4 seasons. But when you look at those 4 seasons, I don't think coaching contributed to very much of those failures.
No, it didn't. It was the fact that we had this past season a third string goalie in, and we didn't have our captain for a game and a half. And the year before, it was the fact that our goaltending couldn't figure it out for one reason or another. Let's go back a year before. Pandemic, weird year. Matt Murray. Again, the problems keep coming back to goaltending, but there were other problems plaguing the Penguins in the bubble. Let's just be honest. And then you go back to the one more before that. I have no answers for the first Islanders year. I don't. But that happens because let's be honest, that was our first year after. I mean, yeah, we lost to the Capitals the year before, but at least we absolutely demolished the Flyers and added on another series victory before going into a Capital series that wasn't bad. It's not like we played horribly. We were just tired. Then you go into the Islanders year. That's like the one I have no answers for, but you're going to get duds sometimes. You're not going to be a perfect playoff team. You're not going to be a perfect playoff coach. You're going to have duds every now and again. And that was far enough in the past now that you forget about it. And then also, I'm not making excuses, but we kind of have excuses ever since. So
yeah. And not to go too far back into history because it doesn't deserve to have that much of a stand on what we think today. But he won his first 9 playoff series as Pittsburgh Penguins head coach. He has lost the past 5. But when you look at the last 2, goaltending makes or breaks a coach in this league. And that broke the Pittsburgh Penguins the past 2 postseasons. First was Tristan Jarry. Second was Louis Domingue. So now we have to wait and see. Obviously, that's on Ron Hextall now, whether or not Tristan Jarry is able to be available and play up to the level that he can. And also Casey DeSmith, because he hasn't been available for either of the past 2 postseasons as an option. I don't know if that would be any better, but that's a discussion for another day. But what I want to do now is show a quick clip of Mike Sullivan from his press conference. The video comes courtesy of the Pittsburgh Penguins on Twitter, where he discusses what it means to him to continue coaching the Pittsburgh Penguins.
And to be able to continue the journey with these guys and our new ownership group and our new management team, for me is it's hard for me to put it into words. I'm so excited about the opportunity to to face the challenges that we have ahead of us. I'm excited about training camp this year. Our coaching staff is meeting starting tomorrow as a group for the next 3 or 4 days to prepare for our upcoming season. I'm so excited to meet with these guys and it's just it's hard for me to put it into words. It just means the world to me.
That is Pittsburgh Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan on what it means to him to continue to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And he also mentioned earlier in that press conference, he said the word that he was honored to remain coach of the Penguins for the next 5 seasons. And I think a lot of Penguins fans and Penguins faithful and mostly the people that pay attention to this team on a day-to-day basis understand the importance of having a really good bench boss, especially in a league where longevity is something that you don't get from that position.
Yeah, you don't. He mentioned that there's a finite number of coaches, and he's one of them. And yes, the joke in the NHL is that they keep shuffling in and out the same 35 to 36 names behind the bench and in the front office. But he's in that elite group, and there's one thing that's for certain, regardless of if it was 35, 36 names or more, if they really did broaden it out and start hiring new people, like you said, you were told, Mike Sullivan would land in the top 3. He would. He was going to coach Team USA. The World Cup of Hockey is coming back. He's probably going to coach that for Team USA. He's on an international scale. He's recognized. So this is more than just him being a great coach in the NHL. And it is much more than just, he has Crosby and Malkin in front of him. That's great. And it helps a lot, sure. But he also doesn't chalk up his coaching success to those guys. He chalks up to other guys that he's coached with, like Rick Tocchet, like Jacques Martin and Mark Recchi.
Mhm.
He's coached with some names. It's fun that he's been able to do this, and he is one of the top 3 coaches in the league. I'm excited to see what he can continue to do here.
Mhm. Now, in that same media availability, he had a Mike Sullivanism that is bordering on a Mike Tomlinism, and he was discussing the championship window for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the age of the core, of course, Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, all over the age of 35 at this point. He said, quote, "We're getting older, but we're not old." What do you think of that Mike Sullivanism is what I guess we'll call it. I think Taylor Haas has called that on Twitter. But what do you think of that? We're getting older, but we're not old.
So first of all, I want to know what post-hardcore band he got that from. Secondly, I think that's a vote of confidence for the guys, because surely they've all been hearing all summer about how are you going to sign a guy at the age of 35 to 6 years? How are you going to sign a guy at the age of almost 36 for 4 years? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? They've been seeing that and probably feeling older themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Not when you're head coach, a guy that, I mean, the team seems to love him. I mean, the team's not like angry at him. The team probably wants to run through a wall for him. When your leader like that says, we may be older, but we're not old, suddenly you feel younger. Suddenly you feel like, okay, my peer, or not peer, my boss almost still has that confidence in me. The crowd may not, but that's not who who we should be taking opinions from. I think it was a vote of confidence because we can all recognize, everyone's getting older there. We can all recognize that.
Well, everybody's getting older in the world. Like it's a very common state, like a common thing. Everybody's getting older.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. We can admit that the team is getting older.
Yeah.
But the fact that your leader is saying to you, you're still not old though. Age is but a number in this situation. Whenever Chris Letang is going to still put up damn near 30 minutes a night, get ready for it. When Evgeny Malkin's going to come back and possibly lead the team in points, get ready for it. When Sidney Crosby is still going to be Sidney Crosby, there are things that you can fall back on with a quote like that says, yes, we can recognize aging is happening, but it has to be their mindset. It cannot actually be them playing like their age.
Yeah, I just think he was watching too many Mike Tomlin press conferences throughout training camp, so he pulled that one out of a hat there during his media availability. I understand it. I think it's a funny comment to make. Obviously, like, we're getting older. Like, no shit, everybody's getting older.
I did hear Sullivan drop a standard every now and again too. So
yeah, he mentioned the standard of Pittsburgh Penguins excellence and stuff like that. Yeah, this guy is definitely feeding off the Mike Tomlin train of media availabilities. But the last thing I want to talk about before we move over to talk a little bit about Evan Rodrigues, because he was in the news earlier this week. Let's discuss this last question that I want to ask you, Horwat. Will Mike Sullivan win a Jack Adams Award in the next 5 seasons with the Pittsburgh Penguins?
You know what? If he didn't get nominated for one this year, I just don't see it happening. I don't, because first of all, it doesn't matter. Let's just start right there.
No.
It does not matter if he wins one or not. It's just a nice little mark to have on your resume. It's kind of what killed Dan Bilesman's career in a way. So I'm not too worried about it superstition-wise, but I just don't think it will, because this would have been the most worthy year for him to do it. And somehow he didn't get nominated. He was in the running of the top 3 or 4 the entire season.
Yeah, and then he finished 8th.
Yeah, somehow, some way. So I think the only way for it to happen is if he literally loses all 3 of the core and still makes the playoffs. I feel like that might be the only way that is it NHL writers that vote on that one?
I'm not 100% certain, but that sounds right.
So that might be the only thing that'll get him to vote on or get him into that conversation, just because people are stingy. Whoever votes on it does look at the fact that he has, like I mentioned, Crosby and Malkin and Letang on his team and say, well, he's got a great team in front of him. What do you expect him to do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, guess what? Evan Rodrigues was the only player to play 82 games last season.
Yeah.
And he sucked for half of them.
Yeah.
So he does deserve one, but I just don't see it happening because, I mean, like I said, these voters are stingy.
Yeah, I want to say yes, to this question. I want to say he does win a Jack Adams Award in the next 5 seasons, but I don't know, man. Like you said, he has deserved a little bit better results than he's gotten already. But I think when you combine the fact that, yes, that core is aging, so people are starting to take the Penguins less and less seriously. Like, I don't think anybody's counting them out as much as they did a couple seasons back, but people are still saying, okay, they're the Penguins, but they're over the age of 30 when it comes to overall age. They're getting older, not just with their core, but, Jeff Carter's older, Brian Dumoulin's older. They brought in Petrie. He's over the age of 34. So people are starting to already have that shadows of doubt. If the Penguins can go out and, say, win the President's Trophy for the second time in franchise history, and then every other team does exactly what is expected of them, no more, no less, then maybe Mike Sullivan gets a Jack Adams. But if just one team, like if the Buffalo Sabres or the Detroit Red Wings sneak into a playoff spot, people are going to be like, oh my goodness, how did they get there? Coaching is a masterclass there. Meanwhile, the Penguins have a President's Trophy winning team for the second time in franchise history with 35-plus-year-olds as their mainstay. And people will still look down on that. And I think that's just the way that national media views superstar-led teams, is coaching is not as important. But when you see a guy in Mike Sullivan who is heading into his 8th season, who right now is on contract to potentially coach this team for 12 seasons, you have to start realizing that he is really important, not just a side piece to the Pittsburgh Penguins' success.
Yeah, and also it's the NHL Broadcasters Association. So,
okay, so not writers, but broadcasters.
Yeah, it's still the national media, if you will.
Yes.
And it generally turns out to always go to the coach who, hey, your team wasn't supposed to be good this year and you made the playoffs. Here you go. I mean, who won it this past year? I don't even remember now.
Yeah, I can look that up, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
I remember Gerard Gallant was nominated.
Was it the head coach of the Stars?
I don't remember. I don't think.
Rick Bowness got fired, so I doubt it was. But I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, because if you go back to years prior, I mean, generally it's supposed to be, or at least the nomination is supposed to be, hey, your team wasn't supposed to be good, and yet you were good. But then you do look at who they usually have winning. Rod Brindamore won in 21. Bruce Cassidy for the Bruins in 20. Barry Trotz, I mean, that team wasn't supposed to be good, but there they were in 19. So generally that is how it goes. Like the team wasn't supposed to be good. Like Gerard Gallant winning with Vegas. Yeah. No, that team was not supposed to be good in their first year, and they went to the Cup final. Now that voting happens before the playoffs, but they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
With a quote unquote ragtag group of guys no, that's not how it works. But
the Golden Misfits.
Spiel over. Who won that? Who won this past season? Because I just don't remember.
Daryl Sutter of the Calgary Flames.
They were supposed to be good, but not as good as they were.
Yeah.
So that's how that rolls. And I like that choice too.
Jacob Markstrom having 10 shutouts in the month of basically October and November helps that a lot.
Yeah, and I don't hate that choice either. Again, Sullivan deserved to be nominated in this past season, but he may have even had a better season than Sutter.
Yeah. So congratulations to Mike Sullivan. We're going to move forward here on the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast. When we come back after this quick break, we're going to talk about Evan Rodrigues because he is still unsigned as a free agent, and the Penguins have shown a little bit of interest in their former player. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com. Horwat, you had this story for InsideThePenguins.com when talking about Evan Rodrigues, currently still a free agent. I would think the top free agent left on the market heading into September. According to ESPN, Greg Wyshynski, Erod has changed agents, now being represented by Darren Ferris. And according to Ferris, there are 7 to 8 teams that have showed interest in Evan Rodrigues, 2 to 3 of which he believes are good fits. Now, when it comes to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are also mentioned to have interest in bringing back the services of Evan Rodrigues, I feel like he considers them one of the good fits just because he's found success there and he's probably very comfortable in Pittsburgh.
Definitely very comfortable. Definitely has seen some sort of success. And we all are well aware that Darren Ferris can just be hard to work with sometimes.
Mhm.
Also, Ferris did mention that teams are trying to figure out cap situations and
Yep.
cap constraints, which the Penguins are definitely one of those teams at the moment. We are one body over the roster limit
Mhm.
with over $1 million to pop off. I believe it's 1.4 that they have to cut down.
Mhm.
So adding a name, even if it's a small contract, like let's say Evan Rodrigues gets league min somehow, which he's not going to.
No.
But let's say that happens, we're still over. Like we can't add any sort of contract and expect us to go down. We have to do some shuffling, and it's going to take a little bit more than just sending a guy down or sending two guys down to chop off that money, because then we have to then add. It's pretty much just a chess match we have to play with ourselves and figure it out. In my opinion, I'm not super into the Rodrigues idea.
Hmm.
That is just me. Again, I'm sorry, the back half of last season left such a sour taste in my mouth. I get that we all got hyped up for the first half. I get that we all got hyped up for point per game Evan Rodrigues. But I knew when it was happening that wasn't what the player he was. And I think I always felt that second half is closer to what kind of player Evan Rodrigues is. That's just me.
Mhm.
Now, he might be a great locker room guy. He might have just lost his confidence, and I get that happens. Look at Kasperi Kapanen all season. But you have to find the confidence and maintain it. Maybe a new deal does that for him. I just don't want to see him utilized. I mean, on the first line like he had to be this past season for reasons.
Mhm.
But the season before he was utilized on the first line for why?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. When I look at Evan Rodrigues and I think about this entire situation, first of all, obviously the Penguins would welcome him back with open arms because
Sure.
they had loved having him on the roster. When I look at the situation, though, as you mentioned, in order to do this, they're going to have to send down 3 guys and get Rodrigues on a very cheap deal just to make it fit, unless there's a trade incoming, which might be the case, but we're just not sure at this moment in time who that would be or when that would even occur. So you would have to play with probably 21 players on your roster, which is not a good bounce back. If you have an injury, you have to only have one guy in the press box ready to go at a moment's notice. That's a precarious position to put your team in, even though I do think the team would overall be better with Evan Rodrigues back on the roster because, like you mentioned, he plays center. He can play the wing. I understand that the back half of last season was awful. Like the fact that he didn't reach 20 goals is borderline criminal, but I think he really did make up for it with the way that he played the postseason. He showed that, hey, he still has that level. He just needs to get to it. Now, doing that at a consistent basis, that's what gets you paid in this league. And I know that's what he's looking for this offseason. Obviously, everybody looks to make the most money, but if he's going to come back, it's going to have to be a similar situation to Danton Heinen, where he looks out at these teams that have interest. And I'm sure these teams are offering up more money than the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to offer. But you have to look at that situation and be like, okay, do I want more money or do I want to take 1-year deal, wait for the salary cap to hopefully jump up, more teams to be willing to spend more money and bet on myself again with an organization that I've proven I could be successful with, and they will put me in positions to be successful. That's the decision that Evan Rodrigues has to make now. So between the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm sure that they're welcoming him back with open arms. And let's not lie. We're sitting here looking at the salary cap situation and saying, there's no way they're going to be able to do this. It's going to be very difficult. They have guys that literally get paid salaries to figure this out. They'll figure it out if they can end up making it happen. I think it's possible. I think it's something the Penguins would love to see happen. I think it's something that Evan Rodrigues in the back of his mind thinks is one of his best opportunities. But I also think you mentioned in your piece, the Calgary Flames are another team. He would also fit very well in that Daryl Sutter system. Maybe not as offensively high-powered as he's allowed to be in Pittsburgh, but also the fact that he is a pretty good two-way center, and Daryl Sutter will just hammer that home on a team that needs center depth. So it's an interesting situation with him. Last season, he had 43 points at 82 games. He was the lone recipient of the Iron Penguin Award winner, meaning he was the only player to play in all 82 games last season. So we all know the best ability is availability, and he has certainly provided that. So it's really interesting that the Penguins at this juncture with 21 days, 3 weeks until training camp starts, are starting to pop up as a team interested in Evan Rodrigues, one of the best free agents left on the market.
Yeah, I'm shocked that he still hasn't found a team. One thing, too, that you have to look at with Evan Rodrigues, and never mind, you don't want to look at it this way. The fact that he scored more points, despite it only being in the first half, really, than Evan Rodrigues and Kasperi Kapanen. Denton Heinen and Kasperi Kapanen.
Yeah, I was about to say, wait, he scored more than himself? That's insane.
Pretty much. No, he outscored Kasperi Kapanen specifically, who managed to still gain a $3.2 million contract.
Yeah, that still doesn't make sense to me, but continue.
Denton Heinen scored one more point than him and earned a $1 million contract. So that really does leave Evan Rodrigues in a place. So if he could get anywhere, I mean, he scored 10 more points than Heinen. Sorry, 11. 10? I can't read today.
Math is difficult.
Yeah, I'm just looking at all of the numbers, and there's people in between, so it was a little more confusing. But he scored 10 more points than Heinen did. So if you're really trying to gauge a contract based on how many points these guys scored, that apparently it doesn't mean anything, because Kasperi Kapanen scored 32, 11 goals for $3.2 million. And 2 years, no less. Denton Heinen, 18 goals, 15 assists for 33 points. Gets a one by one somehow.
Yeah.
So that leaves Rodrigues with 19, 24, 43 to make almost whatever he wants with this team. But you have to really, again, like I'm going to say, look at the back half of that year and chop a number off of that contract. You really do, in my eyes.
Yeah.
I get he did well in the playoffs, which awesome. Love that. Sucks we didn't win to see if it could continue. Yeah. 7 games in the playoffs is a lot, and it is playoff experience, and he played well in those 7 games. It's not a big enough sample size to really get an idea of what he could have done in the postseason, especially considering he played in 1 game previously in the playoffs.
I don't remember. I don't remember how many games he had played in.
Played 2 last year with 1 assist.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Kasperi Kapanen. Here's the thing with Kasperi Kapanen. We'll go there. The reason that he also got more of a contract, I know it plays a factor. It's not the sole reason. He was a restricted free agent instead of an unrestricted free agent. Heinen also was restricted at first, but the Pittsburgh Penguins reportedly didn't want to pay him $3 million. So they didn't tender him an offer. He went to free agency. It worked out for the Penguins because they got Heinen back at $1 million, but that is a severe pay cut that Heinen took to come back. You would need the same exact thing to come from Evan Rodrigues. And if not, you're talking about, and we mentioned maybe a trade, but like, who is that going to be? We talked on Monday about Marcus Pettersson can't really be traded with the way that the Pittsburgh Penguins look at left defense, which also means Brian Dumoulin probably can't be traded either. And those are your 2 really only candidates to open up space on the back end. So maybe even a guy like Brock McGinn gets shifted out, because when I look at what McGinn has done, I think he's much better than what he showed last season, because he was interrupted so many times, injuries, COVID, stuff like that. When that happened, his play really deteriorated. But I also look at the fact that a lot of these younger guys coming into the roster, a guy like Drew O'Connor, a guy like even Drake Caggiula, a guy like Alex Nylander, they can play that role.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing that, if you're getting rid of McGinn in order to bring Rodrigues back, because there you have a penalty killer. Like, that fills that role, which is what McGinn truly brings to this roster more than anything. So I don't know if you trade McGinn. I don't know what the cap penalty would be if you forced him through waivers down at the minors, but that's really the only shoe that would have to drop in my eyes that I can see from here for Evan Rodrigues to come back. I mentioned he's one of the best free agents remaining on the market. The other one of real relevance is Sonny Milano, the 26-year-old left wing, played with the Anaheim Ducks last year. Those 2 are probably the cream of the crop about what's remaining. Sam Gagner is available. Tyler Ennis is available still, but those aren't guys that you think the Pittsburgh Penguins would go out and get. There's a bunch of former Penguins that are also on this list. Alex Galchenyuk, Daniel Sprong, Derek Brassard. There's a couple more. Let me go. Zach Aston Reese is available. Dominic Simone. And big-time Pittsburgh Penguin, James Neal, still on the open market. Played last year in the AHL, but yeah, Evan Rodrigues is clearly the player that's going to move the needle the most out of all of those guys.
Daniel Sprong still needs a contract. Why have we not been like blowing up his phone?
Because we like people that actually play defense.
Listen, not anymore. Not anymore.
I mean, for the bottom six, yeah, we already have enough top six guys that play offense and not defense. We don't need a bottom six guy that doesn't play any defense.
Right, we don't know. We do need the defensive minded player to slip in there.
What that brings me to one last thing that I want to ask. Where would you put Evan Rodrigues in the lineup for 2022-23? Because, you know, he played in the top six last year. He played in the bottom six. He played center. He played winger. Where does he fit with this current lineup? I know the forward lineup's basically the same, but you have to imagine that, I mean, would you drop Zucker out of the top six? Would you then also drop either Heinen or Carter or Kapanen into a fourth line role? Like, I don't know where you put him in because you don't bring him back to be a fourth liner.
See, the issue is that I still look at Evan Rodrigues as a bottom six player. And I feel like our lineup at this moment is full of bottom six players. Like, we talk about our top six, you know, Crosby, Malkin, and Crosby, Malkin down the middle, Gensel and Rust on the wings, Raquel. And those are the only five, ironically, top six forwards I really see on in this organization right now, whereas everyone else filters into the bottom. Jason Zucker just needs to get healthy, and then he can plop right back into that role.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, I'm seeing him as a third line, almost HBK style, where he's a good player and can play in the top six, but we don't have the space for him. But at the moment, he's up there. And then you look at everyone else. Jeff Carter, old, bottom six. Bluger, he needs to get up there, but bottom six. Mm-hmm. Kapanen just had a failure of a season, bottom six. Heinen, he could slip up there. He could absolutely pop into that top six role, but needs to find the ground and consistency to completely hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a middling guy. Maybe he flies up there. And then that's where, like I said, Evan Rodrigues flies in. I'd say at this point, the most he does and where he fits is knocking Josh Archibald off the top 12.
I wouldn't put Archibald in the top 12 to begin with, but yeah, he would.
He absolutely would. Now, Ryan Poehling's going to be, keep forgetting, Ryan Poehling's going to be a guy. He's going to make this top 12, maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
Brock McGinn, bottom six again. So it's all very interesting, whereas Evan Rodrigues would fit.
Yeah, with the signings that Ron Hextall made this summer, it kind of seems like he didn't think this would be on the table with Evan Rodrigues, because he made a lot of signings for the bottom six that are, hey, it's quantity over quality. Like Ryan Poehling, sure, he has the opportunity and he has the ability to potentially be a really good bottom six piece, but hasn't quite showed it in Montreal. Drake Caggiula, same thing that happened with him in Buffalo and Edmonton. Josh Archibald is a bottom six piece, not necessarily a guy that is going to move the needle, but hey, he's a guy. And that's kind of been the storyline throughout the offseason. I mean, even Drew O'Connor is a guy that, yeah, he could be a bottom six guy. He could also be a guy that should be in the AHL. We just don't know yet. It's too early to tell with him, and he's a young player. Yeah. So when you look at that frame of mind that you have to imagine Ron Hextall was in, you don't assume that Evan Rodrigues was in the plans. But if he ends up being in them, I think at the end of the day, it only helps the Pittsburgh Penguins to bring him back if they can afford to do it, because like you mentioned, there's going to be injuries. It happens every season, especially with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And a guy like Evan Rodrigues can plant into literally all 12 spots on the forward lineup. So that's never a bad thing to have a guy like that. Also, the fact that he was a 19 goal scorer last year, regardless of when he scored the goals, it's a guy of that caliber that you want to have back in your lineup. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll finish this one like we finish every single Thursday episode with our shout outs and call outs. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by InsideThePenguins.com, featured on Sports Illustrated Fan Nation. I also want to shout out, before we get into our official segment, shout outs and call outs, I want to shout out the podcast Rangers Ed for having me on earlier this week. 3 guys all named Ed. As far as I can tell, they're all They're all related, but definitely all New York Rangers fans. We had a nice conversation about the budding return of this rivalry between the Penguins and the Rangers, talked a little bit of Jacob Trouba, talked a little bit of Sidney Crosby, talked a little bit of basically everything between the Rangers and the Penguins. So go check that out. Again, that is Rangers Ed. They're on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can find their podcast wherever you get your podcast from. So let's get into shout outs and call outs, Horwat. Since I led off last week, I will let you lead off this week with your shout out.
Cool. I want to. We talked about the trendy topic is to not like the Mike Sullivan signing. The trendy topic also in Pittsburgh right now is to not like what O'Neal Cruz is doing. I enjoy it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm shouting out O'Neal Cruz for just beating the hell out of baseballs. I get that he strikes out a whole hell of a lot. I've never seen anyone strike out that much and that quick a consistency. But when he does make contact, despite not hitting over the Mendoza line, boy, do those things move. I mean, I forget which game it was, but he had.
That's the Brewers.
Also, because it was the Brewers game that they blew the lead for. 3 hits all over 111 miles per hour. You know how fast that is to fly off the bat? Listen, old heads are going to get mad at this player because he's not hitting above the Mendoza line, which, don't get me wrong, that upsets me too.
Yeah.
But that'll come with consistency. That'll come with time, hopefully. And hopefully he just starts swinging at smarter pitches. And yeah, I've been watching him strike out looking. I've been watching him strike out badly. But at the same time, when he makes contact, that sucker moves. I don't know what else to say about it. He has a cannon of an arm, too. Still throwing balls away, but that's what you're going to get out of a rookie, I guess. I think there is a lot to be angry about with what O'Neal Cruz does and with what this organization is doing with young players. But for what it's worth at the moment, he's at least going to be a ton of fun. We know he's got the brightest future of anyone, I think, in this organization. And can really be something if he just hones it all in, gets it all put together. Imagine these 115 mile an hour balls if they are solid contact. He's still not making. It doesn't seem like he's making solid contact with these balls, these pitches, and they're flying. Yeah. I'm excited to see. I'm going to the game Saturday. I'm excited to see what exactly this kid looks like in real life and in person, to see him gun a ball from short to first. Also, every time Michael Chavis makes a catch at first, it looks like his groin is about to pop in half. But just watching this 6'7" monster play baseball should be entertaining. And I don't know. I like that he's hitting the ball hard. That's all you can ask for out of a guy, right?
I mean, you could ask him to hit it and play a little bit more often than he does. And I understand that. But like, he's, like you mentioned, he's a very young player. It's his rookie season. Like he made an appearance last year for like 5 games.
I think it was only 2.
Two games. Okay. Even so, this is his first season, not even a full season, because he played in the minors for the first 2 months or 3 months or whatever it was, because baseball's forever long. But no, I mean, yeah, you would like him to hit over 200. You would like him realistically to hit over 250. But when he's as talented as he is, like, give it some time. It's not like Pedro Alvarez, where he's 18 years, not 18, where he's 5-6 years into his career, but he's still swinging at these horrendous pitches. Like, you can teach him a little bit more and he can sharpen up the edges and become a really good player. So I get it. And I get why people are like, he's still not good because he's not hitting over 200, but he's still a prospect. Like, and the Pittsburgh Pirates don't have anything else really to be excited about. But so that's a reason he's playing and getting through all this in the majors, because when he goes to the minors, he just tears everything up. Like, he's graduated from that point, but he's not yet to the point where he hit those 3 balls off of Corbin Burns.
That's it.
Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers in baseball. He is just absolutely hammering it around the yard. And he's honestly been a monster against the Brewers, which is, if you're going to do it against anybody as a Pittsburgh Pirate, do it against them or the Cardinals. So, and before we move on, I will say Michael Chavis is an absolute certified dog. I love that guy. I hope he stays with the Pirates, because the dude, despite, again, also not being the greatest of hitters, is one of the better hitters on the team, and just an absolute, just great baseball player and great personality for the team.
He's one of the few guys that it looks like he enjoys being here.
Yeah.
You know, he's just enjoying playing the game.
Yeah, he's got a certain confidence to him despite being a Pittsburgh Pirate. So that's always a good quality to have.
Because that doesn't come from many players here, man. Brian Reynolds, as good as he is, I hope he's enjoying it here.
Brian Reynolds is very stoic, though. It's
Yeah.
not like he shows emotion very often.
I think that's exactly what it is, too. It's just stoic. Key Brian Hayes, I mean, what happened to him? Is he still a good player? Really? I haven't heard his name a lot this year. He's got, what, 2 home runs? Yikes.
Gold glove caliber. But again, same thing
Sure
with
hope
every
so.
other Pirate is needs to be better at the plate.
Yeah. Listen, everyone's been needing to be better at the plate this year. Daniel Vogelbach was a ton of fun. Also, another thing about Daniel Vogelbach, he's going to be an all-star next year just because he's in front of the national media.
Yeah, probably.
Because that's the way baseball works. I appreciated that the first 2 weeks of Vogelbach with the New York Mets was, look what he could do. And everyone in Pittsburgh was just,
We know.
he's been doing that the entire season. Where have you been?
We know. Like we know how great he is. Enjoy him. You should have given us more for him, to be completely honest. But no, my shout out is just a very general sense of the word football. Football is back tonight. The backyard brawl, Pitt versus West Virginia. Pitt ranked 17th, the highest preseason ranking that they have had since 2011 when they were ranked 15th. So I'm excited for this. I mean, a couple of great games over the weekend. We got Ohio State, Notre Dame. That should be a lot of fun. We got Georgia, Oregon. That should be a lot of fun. And then in 1 week from today, the Buffalo Bills taking on the LA Rams at SoFi Stadium. The NFL is back. It's just a great time of the year for sports fans. I'm enjoying watching EPL, English Premier League. Baseball is getting, a lot more fun. Timmy Trumpets at the Mets game was hilarious.
Again,
yesterday.
Another player that mediocre at best, not on the national scale.
Yeah, well, he's doing great things, making great content for the internet. So I love Edwin Diaz. And also, like I said, Penguins training camp, Michelle Briere days away, Penguins first game, Kasperi Kapanen days away. It is a fun time of the year, Horwat. Get ready for great sports because after 2.5 months of just baseball, I'm ready for a plethora of other sports to be in.
Yikes, just baseball. Yeah, I had my first fantasy football draft the other day last week, and was given the worst grade of the league. So
Atta kid.
The Cinderella story is on. I'm apparently supposed to predicted to have a 1-13 record.
Who did you? We're gonna have to discuss this after the show. I need to know who you draft. First and foremost, who was your first pick? Because when we did the last snake draft we did, you picked Tom Barrasso as your first pick, and you ended up getting washed out in the voting. Who was your first pick in fantasy football?
We had the 7th or 8th pick, and we were down to Najee Harris.
You took Najee Harris in the first round?
Yes. He was like the 5th ranked running back, and all the other 4 were gone at that point.
Okay.
Whenever we get off of here, I can show you. I tweeted the picture of my lineup.
I think I saw it, but I didn't study it. I just saw that basically whatever fantasy service you're using was like, yeah, you're gonna suck.
Yeah. So the Cinderella story is on, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be sure to keep everybody updated over the next 15 weeks.
All righty. Well, I'm going to move over to call-outs here because we are running out of time on this episode. It's a light call-out week for me. I'm not very passionate about this. Like, I'm not very angered. Usually I think of something during the week and like, yeah, that's my call-out. Didn't happen. Like this one I had thought about earlier, but I'm not really passionate about. Calling out movies for being re-released in theaters. Who does that? Like, who goes to that is my question. Like, I understand, like, Avatar did it simply to become the #1 world box office in history, whatever, again, to pass one of the Marvel movies, one of the Avengers movies. Is the cinema industry that dead where the biggest event of the fall is the re-release of Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun edition? I am one of the biggest Marvel fans. You know this, Horwat, and most people listening know this. I love Marvel. I usually watch, like, I'm going to get off this call, take my cat to the vet, and probably watch She-Hulk episode 3 at some point here. But why am I going to pay $15 for like 12 minutes of added footage to see the same movie, basically, with 12 minutes of that's it. That's the only difference. They added 12 minutes probably of Spider-Man swinging around with, I was going to say, spoiler alert, it's been 10 months with the other 2 Spider-Men. Like, that's what you're going to get. But like, I don't understand it. I mean, this is, like I said, I'm not going to die on this hill. I think it's lazy. I think it's also just the theater industry being like, we're pretty dead let's try anything to get anything going. I understood it though immediately after the pandemic. That's my one caveat, because no movies had come out because production was halted. So they re-released like The Godfather in theaters, all these great Jaws was re-released. I understood that because there wasn't content and they had been shut down for so long, they needed to get back out as soon as they were, legally able to. So I got it in that instance. But like the Avatar re-release 10 years later, the people saying, "Oh, Avengers is going to re-release." Why? I don't usually see movies twice in theaters. I know there's people that do during the initial run. I would not go out to see it 12 months later after I've seen it 3 times already.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you. I'm glad you brought up like The Godfather and Jaws. I get where you're coming from with the releases of stuff that came out within a year ago or within the last 5. What about the certified classics that maybe the theater's doing like a classic movie weekend where, okay, maybe not weekend, a classic movie Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where, hey, a couple of the theaters are going to be sectioned off and we're going to show only movies that are certified hood classics like Jaws, Back to the Future, Godfather, Goodfellas, all of those things.
Gone with the Wind, yeah, etc. And I've seen that before, and that's like things that individual theaters do. But I mean, like these national or international re-releases of theaters that they're expecting everybody to be talking about and dominating media for like a week or 2 weeks. It's like that makes no sense to me.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of my thought process of it, because that is dumb. Like I don't go see movies that often in the theaters either. I used to be like our buddy Ballard, who won a year. That was it. And I don't even do that very often. I just happened to see Elvis in theaters not too long ago, but that was it. That's probably the first time I'd been in a theater in years.
Yeah, no, I am somebody who likes to go to the theaters. I think it's ridiculously overpriced. I think they're doing something this Saturday at AMC where it's like, oh, $5 tickets or $3 tickets, $5 for popcorn and soda. I'm like, you mean what it should be, but okay.
But right, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's expensive, but I still do it like probably 3 or 4 times a year, 5 times a year, depending on how many good movies are out. I know I've gone to one a month for the past like 3 months. So, I think that there's still, I think it's sad that the theater industry is going where it's at, the cinema industry, but I also think that stuff like this is just, it's cheapening the experience, not to mention the fact that the experience has already been cheapened by prices and the fact that like I could go into a real rabbit hole about the AMC where I live because it is awful, but I'll let you finish this off with your call outs before I actually start. I said I'm not going to die on this hill. We're getting into an area where there's a hill I will die on, and I don't want to get there today.
It's the way these movie companies have become a monopoly as well. It's like concert selling or concert ticket selling where they go through 2 brands and that is it. Mm-hmm. There's no expansion. That being said, we move on. I'm going to make my call out quick because, again, we're running out of time. And 2, I don't care too much about this either. But, hey, you know what? Starbucks released the pumpkin spice latte in August, ladies and gentlemen. First things first, I'm not a pumpkin-flavored guy. Secondly, the PSL, if you will, vastly overrated and overhyped. And the fact that it was out in August, it was 90 degrees the other day. And there were people drinking pumpkin spice lattes. That has to be so uncomfortable. I mean, the only time the pumpkin flavored is acceptable is never in my eyes. So at least let it wait until fall or autumn, if you will, rolls around, because I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not dying on this hill. I don't care just because I'm not going to buy one. So it doesn't bother me, but it's weird. Yeah. It was August. Happy September, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. 2 things. It's not even Labor Day yet, which is the unofficial end of summer. Like pools are still open. Like you mentioned, it was 90 degrees there. It is 90 degrees with 90% humidity every day in DC still. So like, I don't want to hear it's fall because it's not.
It's 64 degrees in Pittsburgh right now, but as we record this,
and 2, you're really being brave going against pumpkin spice lattes on a medium that is presented as always by InsideThePenguins.com, where our boss Noah is a major fan of the pumpkin spice latte. So your job might be in jeopardy today, or what? PSL.
I will be the heel in this situation. I don't care. I will talk all of the nonsense if I need to. I have strong opinions about food and drink. Okay,
well, we'll have to invite Noah on to another episode to combat you. Maybe like next week's shout outs and call outs is Noah coming back to say, hey, Horwat, you can kick sand and pound dirt because PSLs are great any time of the year. That's what he'll say. Personally, I I don't think I've spent more than $10 in my lifetime at Starbucks, and that could be like one order. But it is what it is. I understand people getting too anxious for seasons before they happen. I do it every year with Christmas songs.
Yep.
So I understand you and your feeling. I can sympathize and empathize, but I don't quite share the same thing because I honestly don't care. And I know you said you don't either.
No, I really don't. But it just gets annoying whenever it is that early. Like Christmas music before Thanksgiving bothers me. I'm sure that'll be my call out in a few months.
It is every year.
It is every year. But
That'll
also
be the third time.
Just keep the tradition rolling. But also, like, people are getting excited about fall way too early because I had a few coworkers at State G talk about how they were going Halloween shopping for not just for like costumes, but for decorations after work or the next day. And I thought it's August, guys. It's warm.
You got 2 months to Halloween shop. Not that I don't even decorate for Halloween. I mean, my fiance will, but I don't think about decorating for Halloween. But then again, I only think about decorating for Christmas. So that's where I am in that camp. But we're going down a rabbit hole real quick.
Get out of here.
Let's get out of here for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in to this. I guess the beginning was good. The beginning of this episode was great. Thank you if you made it to this point for hanging on to this point. But that's it for this episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast. We'll be back on Monday with maybe a segment that we've been trying to get into a show for the past 2 weeks that just keeps getting pushed back. But we're fine with that. More news, the merrier. We'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great holiday weekend, Penguins fans. Enjoy Labor Day.